Chapter 2, Siwang, the old man, ate all her lipstick. Xu Yiyi wrapped her arms around his neck and softly whined, "Stop it, what if someone walks in?" "No one would dare enter without my permission." Siwang raised an eyebrow, a hint of mischief on his lips, as his hands grew bolder. It seemed like he was deliberately teasing her. His long fingers lifted her chin, and a scorching kiss followed, passionate and lingering. Xu Yiyi pleaded repeatedly. She had no desire to serve this old man in the office in broad daylight. She married him with ulterior motives, not out of love. Of course, she knew Siwang didn't love her either. He simply found her easy to control, using her to placate his grandmother's nagging about marriage. Their marriage contract had even stipulated that there was no obligation to fulfill any marital duties. But due to an unexpected event at the family estate, their relationship quickly ignited, and there was no turning back. Xu Yiyi thought that her relationship with Siwang was more akin to a casual fling than a marriage. The term husband and wife didn't seem quite right. "Fuzong, let's stop. You should finish your work early. Don't forget we have dinner at the family estate tonight," Xu Yiyi softly urged. Siwang withdrew his hand, the fire in his eyes quickly extinguished. "Fuzong? Remember not to call me that when we're at the family estate tonight," Siwang reminded her. Xu Yiyi stood up, tidying her clothes as she nodded. "Got it, Wang." That was Siwang's nickname, though Xu Yiyi wasn't fond of using it. It reminded her of a dog she had as a child named Wang. Of course, she would never tell Siwang that. After Xu Yiyi left, Su Hao entered. Siwang had summoned him to inquire about the secretary team's affairs. "Find a reason to promote and give Xu Yiyi a raise," Siwang instructed. "Yes," Su Hao replied. In the women's restroom, Xu Yiyi touched up her makeup, particularly her lipstick. That old man Siwang had eaten it all. She hadn't expected someone like him, who seemed so distant and uninterested in women and had never been involved in a scandal, to act this way in private. It turns out the saying is true, men are only well-behaved when they're hanging on the wall like paintings. When she returned to her desk, she noticed that the other women in the secretary group were giving her strange looks. She even took out a small mirror to check, confirming that her makeup was fine and nothing was on her face. Why were they looking at her so oddly? Could it be they had discovered her relationship with Siwang? You took a while delivering those documents. Were you chatting with Assistant Su? Ma Rong, ever the gossip of the secretary team, boldly asked. "Assistant Su? No, I didn't see him," Xu Yiyi shook her head, denying it. "I wasn't feeling well, so I went to the restroom." It was true she had taken a bit longer to return from the president's office, so it wasn't surprising that Ma Rong was curious. "Oh? Assistant Su specifically asked for you to deliver the documents. I thought he had something to discuss with you," Ma Rong muttered, clearly skeptical of Xu Yiyi's excuse. "That wasn't the case," Xu Yiyi replied, uninterested in continuing the conversation. She had no desire to chat too much with her colleagues to avoid unnecessary gossip. At lunchtime, after returning from her meal, Xu Yiyi overheard Ma Rong and Chen Wenli talking about her behind her back in the break room. "Xu Yiyi is such a seductress," Chen Wenli grumbled. "I have better qualifications than her, and I even studied abroad. I should have been the one getting promoted." "Exactly. She must have seduced Assistant Su to get him to help her." "She's got some tricks up her sleeve," Ma Rong agreed. "Promotion?" Xu Yiyi raised an eyebrow. Was it her turn to be promoted? Did this mean she would get a raise? Was this Siwang's doing? It seemed marrying him really did have its perks. As evening fell, the secretary team members were preparing to leave for the day, but Xu Yiyi stayed behind. "Oh, trying to make a good impression now that you've been promoted? Staying late to work overtime?" Ma Rong teased. Chen Wenli, standing nearby, didn't look happy. She never used to work overtime, but now she's acting all enthusiastic. Chen Wenli had started at the company around the same time as Xu Yiyi, and her credentials far exceeded Xu Yiyi's. Naturally, she was upset that Xu Yiyi had been promoted ahead of her. Well, I've just been promoted. Of course, I need to make an effort. Only a fool wouldn't want a promotion, Xu Yiyi casually shot back. Chen Wenli's expression soured even more, and she dragged Ma Rong away. Congratulations. You've always worked diligently. Chen Wenli is lazy and lacks focus, so it's only fair that you were promoted. At Fu Corporation, they value ability, not just degrees. Lu Xia congratulated Xu Yiyi before rushing off to pick up her child. Soon after, the entire secretary department was empty, leaving Xu Yiyi alone. She continued her work, waiting for Fu Siwang's call. Half an hour later, Fu Siwang told her to wait for him in the car. Following his instructions, Xu Yiyi did as he asked, and soon after, he arrived and drove them both to the family estate. As they drove, Xu Yiyi hummed a little tune, watching the colorful world outside the window. You seem to be in a good mood? Fu Siwang glanced at her, admiring her delicate profile. At first, when Xu Yiyi had boldly approached him with her proposal, he thought she was no different from other women, just another gold digger trying to latch onto wealth and power. However, after their marriage, Xu Yiyi never once touched the secondary credit card he had given her. Her attire remained simple and unchanged, just like before. Even this promotion had been arranged by him behind the scenes, yet she had never asked for a single thing. This led Fu Siwang to believe that Xu Yiyi truly admired him and was captivated by his charm, rather than by his wealth or status. You gave me a promotion and a raise today. Of course, I can't look unhappy, Xu Yiyi grinned. Her eyes sparkled beautifully, and when she smiled back at him, they curved like crescent moons, captivating Fu Siwang so much that he nearly missed the red light. Tonight's dinner at the family estate is more than just with my grandmother. There will be some relatives there for a family gathering. You don't mind, do you? Fu Siwang asked, shifting the conversation. Relatives? Which ones? Xu Yiyi was surprised. Normally, when they visited the family estate, it was just the two of them dining with his grandmother. She hadn't expected it to be any different this time. I'm not entirely sure. My grandmother said she wanted to introduce you to everyone since we're married, Fu Siwang replied. Suddenly, Xu Yiyi thought of Shen Ziyu. Would Shen Ziyu and Bai Shuqing be there? I don't mind at all. Now that I'm married to you, your family matters are my matters too. If you're okay with making our relationship public, then so am I, Xu Yiyi nodded. It had been Fu Siwang's idea to keep their marriage a secret, so she had never pushed for a wedding ceremony, afraid of making him uncomfortable. That's good, Fu Siwang said quietly. As they arrived at the family estate, Xu Yiyi heard the lively chatter inside. It seemed there were quite a few people in attendance. Normally, the estate was always quiet when they visited. She took hold of Fu Siwang's arm as they entered the living room, and immediately her eyes fell upon a couple standing together, Shen Ziyu and Bai Shuqing. At that exact moment, Shen Ziyu also noticed her. Their eyes met, and in an instant, his pupils seemed to quake, his expression filled with utter shock.